Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome into the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Michael Beller and Jake Seeley here with you to talk through our Week 13 rankings. We're going to break down all 14 games ahead of us on this Week 13 slate to get you ready for your fantasy matchups in what is the second to last week of the regular season for most of us in this new 17-game, 18-week reality. Jake, I'm going to say that here. So no Brandon Funston today, just you and me. And typically we get the show started 2 minutes after the hour, 4 minutes after the hour, something like that. Here we are, no Funston, and we're starting right at the top of the hour. I think we found our magic formula for starting the show on time.
We did. Although now your video's breaking up without him. What's going on? Like, it can't have a nice video and no Funston. See, it can't everything can't be right. But
we
yes,
can't have everything, I suppose.
Well, Funston. See, that's why it's the technical side of things. Funston takes like 3 minutes to get rolling because he tries to record the audio 7 times before it actually works.
Yeah, there you go. And that gives everything time to settle before we get going. So it's nice. We found obviously a pretty good formula for us of what works here on the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. What works for us today, however, is just breaking down all of Week 13's games. As I said, the second to last week for most of us in our regular season. So playoff berths will be clinched this week. Playoff hopes will be dashed this week. And it's just going to be an important week, even if it doesn't carry the gravitas Week 13 has typically carried in our fantasy football lives. So let's jump right into it, Jake. Let's just get going game by game, and let's just talk general impressions, what we think. We don't need to break down every single superstar who we know we're going to be starting, but we see these teams, we see these games, and we know who's intriguing and who isn't from a fantasy perspective. So let's start this off with Bengals and Chargers. The Bengals are 3-point favorites at BetMGM at home against the Chargers. 50.5 is the total on this game. And that's something that jumped out at me at this one, Jake. I mean, I know there's a lot of talent on both offenses, but neither team has been the brand of team that's playing in games that regularly gets into the 50s. So I was just surprised to see this total as high as it is, excuse me. And I guess it makes me feel better about the guys who I'm obviously starting in this game.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It almost feels fantasy side of it that they're at this level because you see Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams. And I'm not talking about the quarterbacks on either side. And then you have a trio of wide receivers plus Joe Mixon on the other side. Right. You're like, wow, this should be, a lot of production in this game. Really what it comes down to is I wouldn't start Tyler Boyd unless need be. You know how I feel about that. And he has been. He's been the odd man out. He has one good game every 4 weeks or so at this point. So the others, I mean, you still have to start Mike Williams, although it really comes down to how Justin Herbert does any given week. And I would say against the Bengals, a good chance. This thing is, what's surprising, and maybe to your point about the 50.5 being a little high, is their secondaries can both, they're not top end. They're not even the Giants or the Panthers secondaries, but it feels like any given week they might play that way. Like the Bengals have a secondary that some weeks are like, wow, they played really well this week. Yeah. And then you have the Chargers do the same thing. The Chargers are like, wow, they're playing really well this week. And then actually, I think since week 7 or 8, the Chargers really fallen off in the pass department. But both of them could shut this down. That's where I say, like, the total might be high, but it won't stop the fantasy production. Like, even if they both only score 20-something, low 20s, for the main 6 guys we're going after, not including Tyler Boyd, I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I think we're okay there too. Justin Herbert is the one who would potentially scare me, but like I would imagine that most Justin Herbert, I know, right? But I would imagine most Justin Herbert managers aren't in a position where they have a second quarterback who they're starting over Justin Herbert.
Taysom Hill. Yeah, you'd play Taysom over. No, I have Justin Herbert. It still is a top 10. I think the conversation for Herbert comes down to Herbert versus like Cousins and Carr, who all those quarterbacks are kind of similar at this point, and that's. Right. I jokingly said, you know how I feel about Herbert, but that was my point about Herbert is I feel like he deserves to be in that Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill. If Ryan Tannehill was playing. Right, and you can't, Ryan
had his guys
left to play with. But in that same conversation of quarterbacks, which isn't a bad thing, there are fringe QB. Joe Burrow, too, on the other side of the ball. Yeah. It's just I wasn't taking him out of that conversation, so it's fine that he's here. And so maybe if you were playing 2 quarterbacks, but as you said, a lot of people drafted Justin Herbert super high and don't really have a backup, and I wouldn't go as far as Taysom Hill. I wouldn't go that far.
not quite that far reaching.
I mean, he might outscore him, but I wouldn't go that far yet.
Yeah, you're not necessarily comfortable playing that game. Should be a fun one. And obviously, as we keep saying, anytime two of these AFC teams get together, it's a huge game in the real world with the playoff implications that we get out of Cincinnati and the Chargers. Another huge game in the real world in the AFC, probably the marquee game of the week from just a pure real life football perspective, is the Monday night game between the Bills and the Patriots. Bills field goal favorites at home, just a 43.5 total on this one. And again, this is a game where, we know obviously who we're playing and who we're not playing. So there's not a ton of intrigue. Maybe with someone like Kobe Myers, for example, maybe with someone like Emmanuel Sanders, depending on how deep your league is and how you're looking at it. But do you worry at all that the defenses in this game, the way that they've played, can stymie the fantasy production for the guys who we know we are playing?
Pretty much everybody except for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs I would have concern about. I'm not trusting that backfield. Haven't been the entire year, even though Matt Breida was fun in DFS purposes and saved his day with the touchdown. But I'm not chasing that backfield, and I think this could be one of the worst backfields situations we see for the Patriots. If you're talking about the split that we've seen with Harris and Stevenson, hasn't been bad most of the season because they've been slightly lesser versions of the Broncos when the split happened. Before that, Damian Harris was great, as I dropped my water. But if you look at it, I say that's more the concern is because they're going against the Bills defense, and the Bills defense for most of this year, outside of Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, have been really good against running backs. And then what Patriots wide receivers do you want to start anyway? Jacoby Myers is the floor. Kendrick Bourne has like 4 good games, and he's like basically Deshaun Jackson. I know people are excited for it because 2 of the last 3 games is when it happened. But, yeah, I'd be concerned about a lot of options in this game outside of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
And with Allen and Diggs, I mean, are you still penciling them in for typical production? You got a spill there?
Yeah, I spilled my water, but it's not anything major. I'm just wiping up. This is my back scratcher, my bear claw back scratcher.
Oh man, you've got like a serious back issue.
No, it's sitting here for like when I'm doing work, and it's always that one spot by the shoulder blade, and it's a bear claw, so it reaches across. You can actually like really get that spot. It's that one. Everybody knows that spot. It's that one spot that it's like God's like, haha, you can't get this spot on your back that gets the itchiest the most.
We've yet to evolve to be able to reach that spot. Right? Maybe one day, maybe our successors in the human race.
We don't need to evolve. Just get a bear claw.
A bear
Not
claw for Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. I mean, if you're starting them this week, which you obviously are if you have them, are you thinking, great, I've got Josh Allen, he's awesome, but I maybe need someone else in my lineup to step up a little bit?
Not so much. I mean, look, we talk about this all the time, and I think it's funny that people always think Belichick's the only. I've said this on the show. Everybody thinks Belichick's the only one of the 32 teams that aims to stop the best weapon on the other side of the ball. Like, yes, they've been better at it. He's a better game plan strategist than most, if that's even a way.
I think strategist is the
I was going to say a strategist. Just making up words while I'm spilling water over here. But really what it comes down to is just, look, you're starting Diggs. You're starting Josh Allen. Maybe they're not number 1 and number 1, but they're QB1 and wide receiver 1. So I would say I wouldn't think too much on it.
All right, let's get to 49ers and Seahawks here. 49ers 3.5-point favorites in Seattle. 45 is the total on this game. All the intrigue, or most of the intrigue for me at least, is on Seattle's side. What are you doing with these guys? you have to start DK Metcalf. You have to start Tyler Lockett. Do you have to start Russell Wilson?
No.
Right? I mean, maybe even a better way to think about it is, do you even start Russell Wilson unless he's your only quarterback?
I would start Taysom Hill over Russell Wilson, or I would think long and hard about it. I have him one spot in front of Russell Wilson because the rushing floor is at least there. We all know at some point Russell Wilson's finger is going to get right, but that's the problem is how right is it? And when is that going to happen? It's a major injury that everybody out there said was coming back way too soon from. Everybody said he's not going to be able to be Russell Wilson, and it comes down to holding the ball and throwing with that finger. And as we've seen, he's sailing passes. He's missing his mark. He did hit Tyler Lockett, but that one was floated up there for a long time. It's just it comes down to it. But that's the upside of it. Is you can't, like you said, you can't bench Lockett. You can't bench DK as much as DK has been completely left out. But here's the thing, too, is the bringing in of Adrian Peterson. I don't know if he's active this week, but it's not just Russell Wilson when it comes to DK Metcalf. You watch the last 2 games, and defenses are just doing what they're doing with TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts and other teams like that.
Right.
And his in a different fashion, he's being completely bracketed. He's just being guy over the top, guy underneath, potentially even a guy off the extra safety. It's ridiculous. So that's why DK is not hitting. So if Russell Wilson / maybe the backfield can do something, because nobody respects the running backs, and for good reason.
Why should they? Yeah, exactly. They've not shown us anything since the Chris Carson injury, really, that would make us respect them. We have to respect the running backs on the 49ers, of course, but one of those running backs not going to be out there, Deebo Samuel. What are your expectations for the 49ers offense in a Deebo-less world?
One of those running backs. This really wouldn't have changed even if Deebo was out there. It's fun to see him get that work. It's similar to Robert Woods. I mean, it's not something we haven't seen before. Yeah. It's just been exciting because he's.
I just mean for like the whole offense, not necessarily for Eli Mitchell, but just like how does the offense spread out?
No. But I was just bringing it up because people are having. It's been a big thing, making jokes about. I mean, I even jokingly said, "Give him RB eligibility, you cowards," as a joke during the game. Yeah. But it comes down to because he scored a touchdown at 3 straight. That's why. Otherwise we'd just be like, "Oh, look, he's chipping in 20, 30 yards." But it's the Eli Mitchell, and that's what I was saying is because I don't care who else is back there. Been saying this since what week? When was the week that Eli Mitchell came back from injury? Was it week 5 or 6? Whatever it was.
I can't remember what it was.
The first game he came back, I was tentative. Everybody was. It was like, ooh, did Trey Sermon prove in that one game with his good game that this is now a committee, or not even a committee, but a timeshare, because a timeshare is only 2, as Scott Engel always says. Timeshare is 2, committee is 3. But that was the concern, and Eli Mitchell immediately comes back. It wasn't a great game, but in that game, Trey Sermon had 1 touch, 1, and then none the next week. It is Elijah Mitchell. He is Shanahan's guy. Stop being worried about it. So even if Deebo's healthy, even if Deebo's not, if Hasty's active, I'm not concerned. It's Elijah Mitchell. He's a fringe RB1 for the rest of the year, as I've been saying for weeks now.
All right, let's get on to the Thursday night game. So if it's Friday or Saturday and you're listening, you can skip ahead a couple of minutes. This news came to me from viewer James Martin. Thank you, James. I went and checked on Twitter, and Alvin Kamara indeed not going to play on Thursday night football for the Saints against the Cowboys. Cowboys 4.5-point favorites in this game. So, I mean, we're firing up Mark Ingram with a ton of confidence in this one for sure, right, Jake?
I'd say ton, volume ton. I'd say as an RB2, top 20. Yeah. They're without both their tackles too, and Ramchick and Armstead, so that's on top of it. And then Taysom Hill is starting. We know that, and he's going to run, which we've seen what he does to this backfield. We've seen what he's done to Alvin Kamara before. So I say that to say this is like, yes, you are, but you might have a team where you don't actually need Mark Ingram. Like, I'd say, let's see if would I start him over Myles Gaskin against the Giants? I don't think so. Jamal Williams with no DeAndre Swift against Minnesota? I don't think so.
How about in this same game, Tony Pollard?
I'd start him over Tony Pollard, and I have Tony Pollard at 23. Miles Sanders against the Jets, and so he's not even top 20. He's just outside the top 20. He's a low-end RB2. So that's the confidence where you might not need him. I mean, if you had Jamal Williams and you picked him up and you grabbed Myles Gaskin and you're riding that fun and waited on David Montgomery, you might not need Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I think I suppose that's fair. I've got him in one spot where I definitely do need him, and so he will be out there for me. And I think that's going to be true for a lot of people who picked up Mark Ingram weeks ago after the trade or after the Alvin Kamara injury, whatever the case might be.
Out there chasing Rex Burkhead.
Hey, yeah, exactly, right? If you're chasing Rex Burkhead, then Mark Ingram's definitely going to be your guy. You say Tony Pollard at running back 23, so he's in that mix as well. Feel comfortable starting him alongside Zeke. I think we have to assume right now that Zeke's going to get his usual workload.
Well, if it's Jerry Jones, he's going to get more than that, apparently. Apparently Mike McCarthy was the one holding Ezekiel back from getting his full workload. But, yeah, I'm looking right now. I have Ezekiel Elliott just outside RB1 conversation just because there's twofold. One is the matchup. Still have to respect the Saints. The Saints are still one of the best defenses, both run and pass in the league. And then, 2, no matter what Jerry says, the knee has looked to be an issue. He did come in and get his touchdown, but let's say Tony Pollard scores that and finishes off that drive. And I mean, actually, the run on the play right before that,
down at the 1,
then Ezekiel Elliott's day on Thanksgiving was pretty terrible for Ezekiel Elliott standards, and that's why I don't think he's a locked-in RB1 going forward. We talked about this on Monday. I say worst case scenario, I think that the Broncos now, and I think that's really how you have to treat them, although it's just a bigger of a gap where Williams and Melvin Gordon almost back-to-back. I'd say Zeke and then 6 to 8 spots and then Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then you've also got maybe just a little boost for them versus the Denver guys in that it's just a better offensive environment generally for Dallas. We just expect them to put up more yards, more points in a given week. So that also works to their favor. CeeDee Lamb back for this game. Amari Cooper almost certainly back for this game. Listed as questionable,
Sounds
but
like it.
you probably don't activate a guy from the COVID-19 list and then sit him out. So most likely getting Amari Cooper back, right? I mean, it could happen. It's just unlikely that it'll happen.
Right. No, I just meant like, who knows nowadays? It's just like
it's true. It's
no
true.
idea.
But as you and I are recording this at 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, getting my time zones all screwed up. 10:15 a.m. Eastern time. Most likely that we will see Amari Cooper out there later tonight, and maybe you want to see some Cuts clothing under the tree this coming holiday season. Work attire has changed. The days of wearing uncomfortable business attire are over. You don't have to sacrifice style for comfort with Cuts clothing. I've got some Cuts myself. T-shirts mostly is what I have from Cuts, and they're great. They fit great. They look great. They feel great. And they're things that I can wear on camera like this. I'm not wearing one right now, but I can wear it on camera, and then I can just keep that on all day and go out with friends, go out with my wife and daughter, and just no matter what the situation is, Cuts has the right clothing for me, and I think for you as well. Their exclusive collection of clothing hits all occasions and all seasons, including polos, bomber jackets, joggers, and more. And they've got your holiday shopping covered with a ton of new products and special site exclusive offers every day in December. Get 15% off site-wide at cutsclothing.com/fantasy. That's cutsclothing.com/fantasy to get 15% off your can't miss deals. Ever wanted to make your home feel just a little bit safer? Well, now is the right time to do that because our friends at Simply Safe are giving Athletic Fantasy Football podcast listeners 40% off their award-winning home security system. Simply Safe has everything you need to make your home safe: indoor and outdoor cameras, comprehensive sensors, all monitored around the clock by trained professionals who send help the instant that you need it. Simply Safe was named Best Home Security System of 2021 by U.S. News and World Report. You can easily customize the system for your home online in just minutes and get custom recommendations from Simply Safe as well. These are the biggest discounts you're going to find of the year. Get a complete home security system for starting at just more than $100. No long-term contracts, no commitments. Just get that peace of mind from a Simply Safe system. Take advantage of the holiday sale at Simply Safe and get 40% off your new home security system by visiting simplysafe.com/fantasy. Again, that's simplysafe, SIMPLI safe.com/fantasy for 40% off your entire system. All right, Jake, Bucks and Falcons, the next game that we're going to talk about here. Bucks 10.5-point favorites in Atlanta. A lot of big road favorites this week. The total on this game is 50. I guess the first thing that comes to mind in this game when I look at it is like, what are we doing with Kyle Pitts? Because it's been bad for him for weeks now.
You're starting him unless, maybe Logan Thomas, if we know he's 100%. I would make the case for Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, 3 double-digit scores before he got hurt, and they limited his first game back. You can make a case for him. Obviously, my boy Air Fryermuth. I love some Air Fryermuth. I think at this point, you're starting him. You are starting him. And, hey, 100% of the snaps in the game that Darren Waller missed. I don't know that I would pull the trigger on Foster Moreau, but I think I have Foster Moreau inside my top 10, and Kyle Pitts is not. Really what it comes down to is Kyle Pitts has just been – he knows – he's Jacoby Myers at tight end, but worse Jacoby Myers. Like, he's only got 1 touchdown. That's what's really killing him at tight end. Is he has 1 touchdown. That's like the yards. He's top 5 receptions. He's top 10. So it's getting to work. But a lot of that came earlier this year too, to make that clear before anybody jumps all over that. It hasn't happened as much since Calvin Ridley has taken a absence from the NFL. So you look at it, and it's the conversation I keep having about Hawkinson, who is down in this conversation too, is who else are you going to try and stop? And that's what teams are doing. They are triple covering Kyle Pitts, and they say, fine, let Russell Gage and old matey Zacchaeus beat us, because you can't.
Because they really, really can't do it. Let's reach back to what the previous game we were just talking about for a second and answer a question for Brian McCarthy, who's watching us on YouTube. Thank you, Brian. Mark Ingram tonight or Darrell Henderson? Oh, man. I mean, he would maybe have an inside line on this game, right? Ingram tonight or Darrell Henderson with the did not practice earlier this week on Sunday. Are you waiting for Darrell Henderson? Or are you taking the sure thing play in Mark Ingram, even though he's clearly a lesser fantasy option should Henderson go this weekend?
This is why read the brain link at the top of my rankings that everybody skips past every single, because no, it comes down to what's your decision. First of all, we have to find out Thursdays today. He still might practice today. This might you don't have to make this decision until tonight. But let's say Henderson doesn't practice today. Then it comes down to evaluate your team. So you said it. Mark Ingram is the safe play. We've talked about Mark Ingram's barely in RB2. So do you take those guaranteed points or do you wait? Because evaluate your team. Don't look at your opponent. Don't look at their projections. Don't look at your projections. Look at your team and say, do I need more upside or do I need floor? If your floor, answer's easy. It's Mark Ingram. If you need upside, now the question is, do you have a backup plan? Because you still can't risk a 0. So if you don't have, like say, Mark Ingram's your RB4 and you don't have an RB5 on your roster, then you can't wait. But if you do, and like maybe you have, it's the flex option and you could say, hey, I need that upside. I'm going to wait. And if he doesn't play, I'll throw in Deshaun Jackson because I just need ceiling. Then that's how you make your decision there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way that I would attack this too. So let's attack our next game, Raiders and Washington. 2.5-point favorites are the Raiders
Deshaun Jackson
against Washington. There we go. Deshaun Jackson, the perfect Deshaun Jackson transition. So first of all, right off the bat, I think I kind of want to bet on Washington because why are the Raiders coming off this monster Thanksgiving win in Dallas, 10 days off, only 2.5-point favorites at home against a meh Washington team? That's the first thought that pops into my mind. And I guess the second thought is are there any leftovers, if you will, from that Thanksgiving game that we saw from the Raiders with a huge game from Hunter Renfrow, the big game from Foster Moreau? What are we taking from that game and applying to Week 13?
From the Raiders game, you mean? So
from that performance that they had.
So, okay, so there's a couple things. So on the Washington side, I don't think they're that meh. Like I said, just about Logan Thomas, and I think Curtis Samuel. I'm not starting Curtis Samuel yet, but I've been saying in waivers for weeks to go grab him. This is why they signed him. They need a number 2 wide receiver. Logan Thomas has essentially been their number 2, similar to like a Kyle Pitts or a Travis Kelce or anything like that. But I'm saying again, I'm not starting Curtis Samuel this week because right now it is still Logan Thomas because Curtis Samuel has to get 100%. He wasn't even barely in that game. What was it, 20% of the snaps? So I'd say, Washington's not that mess, especially with how Antonio Gibson's playing. And by the way, if J.D. McKissick is active, you run on the Raiders. And I think McKissick could be intriguing. And if McKissick is out, you may be in a deep league, even some Jarrett Patterson. On the Raiders side of it, it's Deshaun Jackson. And I go back to I said, you wait for the ceiling. I don't want to start Deshaun Jackson until I see. There you go. I'd play Halo with the viewers, period. Hey, here's a hint. My gamer tag is really easy to find if you know who I am. I mean, it's way back in the day, I was one of the first, although it has spaces in it. I don't know if you can do spaces anymore. It does have spaces in it. So it's really easy to find my gamer tag.
There you go, Nanner, if you're looking for it.
Hey, I will do it. Just probably not during the season, but I'll be ready to hopefully not suck too much after the season. Although I'll let you know right now, I am a sucky teammate. I usually have a 0.75 kill death ratio for everybody out there that knows.
This is all completely over my head.
Yes, so I'm not even 1-to-1 on Halo. Anyway, Deshaun Jackson, I would like him more if I just saw he was in front of Bryan Edwards. That's the problem. He's basically out there as much as, you see Zay Jones still splitting snaps with him. He was 4th in opportunities last week. So, yes, but here's Deshaun Jackson. What has Deshaun Jackson been? He's the Buccaneers version of Deshaun Jackson. He's not the Eagles version. He's the Buccaneers version. You might get 1 for 13 because he just doesn't catch his big bomb and he's barely used. Or, off those 4 targets, you get 2 for 70 and a touchdown, and that's what you're hoping for.
He's really exactly what he's always been. He's just in his mid-30s now rather than his mid-20s. And when he was in his mid-20s, he would pop a few more of those plays and he would get 10 targets. And instead of that, he gets 5 targets and he pops, for every 5 targets he gets, he pops a big play on a 0.5 of those 5 targets.
I was going to say, that's the thing, though, is the Eagles version of Deshaun Jackson wasn't that bad. It was only about 4 bad games a year.
The Eagles version of Deshaun Jackson was awesome.
Yeah.
He was like Tyler Lockett before Tyler Lockett.
He was, who was the one for, so it was Mike Wallace, Deshaun Jackson, and then one for the Ravens. What the hell's his name? I can't think of Ravens' name. The wide receiver is the clone of him. Oh my God, why can't I think of it? Smith popped into my head, and then Traquan Smith popped into my head. As soon as that popped into my head, done. If anybody's listening in the chat, they can help me out. This is because this is going to infuriate me until I think of it.
We'll think about it. We'll keep it in our minds as we move on through our games, because Cardinals and Bears is the next one I want to talk about. Another one of those big road favorites, Arizona -7.5. And that one's creeping up toward 8 now, actually, in Chicago. 45.5 the spread on this game. Seems, as you and I are sitting here talking on Thursday morning, like we're getting Kyler Murray and D. Hopkins back. Are you totally comfortable just putting them right back into your lineups?
Comfortable 100% on Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray plays, put him right back in there. They've been playing the waiting game smartly, and that's really what it comes down to. Is they've been, they've
picked up games in the standings on the Rams, without Kyler.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. It's like they've gotten away with. I don't say like gotten away, but like the best case scenario, they basically were able to win without him, which is surprising. But the DeAndre Hopkins one, I want to see the reports more, because DeAndre Hopkins before this was still only a wide receiver too, because he wasn't seeing that 24-25% target share like he used to. I think you have to start him. No, not Hollywood Brown, everybody. It's not now. It was old school Ravens. Like, he was a kick returner too. But anyway, I think
stuff up because this is killing me now too.
Isn't it? It's so aggravating. But I would say, look, you want to probably get Hopkins in there, but you might have other options unlike Kyler Murray. That's just what I'm saying. I would say Kyler Murray's you have to play Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins, you might have options at this point. You might have made moves to take care of your situation.
Yeah. Is it Torrey Smith by any chance?
Thank you.
Yes.
That's why the T. Smith came in my mind, and I got Traquan, and I could not get it out of my head. Thank you. Yes, Torrey Smith. He was a wide receiver too that year.
Yeah. He had some great years. He was a really useful fantasy player in some of those seasons. Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, they were useful fantasy players last week. Darnell Mooney's been a useful fantasy player the last 2 weeks. How about this week?
Darnell Mooney every single week. That's easy. Move on from that. I would say not Cole Kmet. Tight ends, this is the inverse of the Cardinals from about 3 or 4 years ago, which is like start Joe Blow against the Cardinals at tight end, because they let every tight end in the history forever score. But not at this point, they are rocks. They're one of the better defenses in the league, and they just destroy tight ends. Them and the Patriots this year are really tough against tight ends. So, I'm worried to go back to that game real quick. I am worried about Dawson Knox too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to be, like we said, you sort of have to be worried about everyone in that game who's not named Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Yeah. I mean, that's really just the case, which also is something that we're not, the way that the game has transitioned, we're not used to seeing that from what's the biggest game of the week. And that is the biggest game of the week this week, Bills and Patriots. And usually when we talk biggest game of the, I'm talking in real life, when we talk about that, we're talking about huge offensive performances. We're talking about Chiefs Packers or something like that. And this is unquestionably the biggest game of the week for just a pure football fan, probably the most fun game of the week, the most meaningful matchup. And it might be a letdown from a fantasy perspective. And it turns out that indeed we do have Mike McCarthy's brother watching us here. So thanks, Brian, for doing this.
And for loyal listener Jiggles, yes, you are correct. You missed the intro because Mike's got friends who have weddings in the middle of the football season, and that's why we had to do this early.
Yeah, sorry, Jiggles. I gotta get on a flight in a couple of hours here, so we had to move things up this week, and we got to keep things moving along. So let's get to Chiefs and Broncos. This is the Sunday night football game. Speaking of schedules moving, this was flexed into Sunday night. Chiefs 9.5-point favorites against the Broncos. Just what are your impressions? I don't really know we basically know what these teams are, I feel like, for the most point. So
question
your
mark?
Impressions. Yeah, exactly. What are your impressions just going into this game? When you're thinking about the fantasy implications of it, what are you thinking about?
I would think about that Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks to be back into the lead, and securely so, in the fact that you don't even want to start Darrell Williams, although we don't know for sure. But I guess the Broncos' defense has been better in the second half than it was in the first. They were actually pretty exploitable in the first half of the season. But I say Clyde Edwards-Helaire is fine. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, you know that. If you didn't stop yet on trying to make Mecole Hardman a thing weeks and weeks and weeks ago, just stop. There's nobody else. There has never been nobody else. It's Tyreek Hill and nobody else in the wide receiver position. On the Broncos side, start the backfield, the end. Okay, I mean, I guess Judy as a wide receiver 3/4, but that's where we are now. It's crazy. You can't start Sutton. Sutton's been droppable for weeks.
Yeah.
Tim Patrick's in front of him and playing in front of him. Forget the fact of what we think about pure talent and the contracts involved. Teddy Bridgewater also kills the passing game, so it's unfortunately, and that includes Noah Fant too. I hated Noah Fant this year for paying up because people were taking him as his top 6-7 tight end. And I'm like, no, he's probably not even going to be a tight end one. Do you know this, Beller? Do you know where he is right now?
I would guess 19.
No, I thought you were about to say 12. It's 12. And he's about to fall out, though, because
How
Rob
is he
Gronkowski...
12? Is that the position's been that bad?
That's how bad the position is. But Rob Gronkowski and Logan Thomas are behind him. So they leapfrog him in a points per game basis.
Yeah.
And then,
easily.
he's about to drop out into the teens.
Yeah. You never want that low-end volume, I've stayed healthy based tight end one. Because that guy is not doing anything for you.
The Frank Gore of tight ends.
Yeah, that's exactly where Noah Fant clearly has been this season. All right, holiday season here. Best deal in wireless this holiday season can be found at Mint Mobile. Right now, when you switch to Mint, buy any 3-month plan, you'll get another 3 months for free. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can also choose the amount of monthly data that's right for you so you can stop paying for data that you're not going to use. Keep your phone number. All your contacts get moved over. The only thing that changes is the plan. For a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan and get 3 more months for free by going to mintmobile.com/fantasy. That's mintmobile.com/fantasy. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month and get 3 months free. mintmobile.com/fantasy. Bombas' mission is simple. Make the most comfortable clothes ever and match every item sold with an equal item donated. This holiday, when you gift Bombas to someone on your list, you're also giving them to someone in need. It is give. Bombas designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft, seamless, tagless, and has a luxuriously cozy feel. They're made from super soft materials like merino wool, Pima cotton, and even cashmere, which makes them the perfect cozy winter layers. And I can vouch for this personally across your entire family. I've got some. My wife's got some. Our little 7-month daughter has some Bombas socks, and everyone is very happy to have them on. Definitely makes you feel comfortable, cozy, and warm in these winter months that we are now dealing with and have to come for months and months. They're the coziest gifts for everyone on your list, and thanks to their festive gift boxes, you don't even have to wrap them. All you have to do is the giving. Go to bombas.com/AFFP and get 20% off any purchase during their big holiday sale. That's BOMBAS.com/AFFP for 20% off. Bombas.com/AFFP. Ravens and Steelers, next game I want to talk about here. Jake, Ravens 4.5-point favorites in Pittsburgh. 43.5 is the total on this game. And can this game get into the mid-40s with the way these teams, especially Pittsburgh, are playing? We talk about Cleveland in this division, in this context, but I feel like the Steelers offense isn't getting enough attention as being really a roadblock to fantasy production because of the name brands that are on their offense.
And so the Steelers defense can be problematic. I think the Steelers defense is pretty much. Trying to think. Deshaun Jackson. You might get the Steelers defense. Look at it. I mean, honestly, look at some of the games they've given up 40 points, and then other weeks it's just they obliterate their opponents, just shut down everything, and they still have the talent to do so. And the funny thing is there was a time where it's it's just whether or not TJ Watt is healthy, and then it didn't matter. There's some games where they just go out there, there's nothing going right, and we just saw that recently. And then there's some games where they turn around and just shut down like I said. So they could go either way. This is a division game. We've seen this for years where this ends up being. I had a hesitation and even answered this question in the comments where I just feel like this might be one of those grinder type games. We're turning, where it feels like that's why I think you see the 43.5, because it might just be neither team gets to 50, 55 snaps on their offense. And it's just kind of plotted out with Najee Harris and then the Ravens, Lamar Jackson / backfield. And there's not a lot of passing upside in it. Look, you still have to decide. Deontay Bay, wide receiver 1, you start him no matter what. The Ravens do give up a lot of chunk receiver plays, so I think Claypool actually falls into the Deshaun Jackson type of conversation this week, is that you might get 3 for 80 for Claypool, but you might get a really quiet game, and then you play Marquise Brown for that kind of play on the other side. But outside of Freiermuth, basically Andrews, the tight ends, locks, you have to play them. The backfield situation, you pretty much play Freeman and Harris, and then Lamar Jackson, and then Marquise Brown and Claypool are in play, but I would not go to Bateman, and then I wouldn't try and chase another option on the Steelers.
This game's got Ravens 23-13 written all over it, doesn't it? That sort of plotting game. Justin Tucker makes a couple of long field goals.
17-14, something like that.
I mean, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be like Ravens Browns all over again. What I feel like what we saw from last week with like a better performance from Lamar Jackson, because you just don't expect Lamar to have 2 total duds in a row like that.
Right.
So, but like the same sort of low scoring, plodding, run game based, maybe a few big pass plays, but it's not going to be pretty. And so, I mean, you like all those guys you mentioned, like it's not like, oh, it's going to be ugly, so I'm sitting Deontay Johnson. Oh, it's going to be ugly, I can't play Najee Harris. That's ridiculous. But it is going to be an ugly game. I just don't see any way that this
now
is
watch
suddenly
it be 40
like
to 30 or something like that.
Right. I just don't see a path for the game to get like, I mean, Pittsburgh can't play like that. They just can't. They just can't. They can't play that style of game. They just don't. No matter how much talent there is, and there's plenty of talent at the wide receiver and running back positions for this team, they just, because of what Ben Roethlisberger is at this stage of his career and what that offensive line is, they're just not built to play a game like that. So yeah, exactly. It's just it's a game that you're going to be playing your guys, but don't expect huge performances necessarily. How about Eagles and Jets? Eagles 6.5-point favorites against the Jets. 45.5 is the total. This game is in New York. And let's look at the Eagles side of things here, Jake. We have to talk about it just because of what this backfield has been. Just this road, it's Miles Sanders, it's Boston Scott, it's Jordan Howard, it's Miles Sanders, it's Jordan Howard, it's Boston Scott. How are you treating the running backs for Philly in this week?
You just said it. It's get frustrated. No, look, if Jordan Howard's out, which it sounds like he might be again, you can start both of them. And that's really like Miles Sanders got banged up in that game, and then he came back. So that was part of why, because he wasn't that bad before he left the game. So it wasn't that like, so you got that upside, and Boston Scott has proven time and again when he's called upon that he can do what's needed here. It's the Jets. And honestly, even if Miles Sanders had that happen, being healthy and got outplayed by Boston Scott, you would still start both running backs because it's the Jets. That's what you're doing. You're playing both running backs. The Eagles passing side of it, I love Jalen Hurts for a bounce back week. Also rushing side of it, I also love Devonta Smith for a bounce back week, because it's not like, the worst case scenario with Devonta Smith, I guess they get 2 or 3 touchdowns all on the ground before he gets his, and then all of a sudden he gets shut out for the game. But it's the Jets who just let the volume king himself, Brandon Cooks, get into the back of the end zone on a big play. That's what you're hoping for. The Jets side of it, nothing. I mean, Tevin Coleman, which here's the crazy thing I'll say is I just had this conversation yesterday.
Last week.
Well, that's what it is. So he's the good version of Rex Burkhead. He's actually getting production with those carries. But, I had this debate with Jeff, and I'm interested to see if you're on my side or Jeff Ratcliffe's side of it. Is I said I'm not even starting Elijah Moore, even if Corey Davis is out, because 2 things. Darius Slay, 1. And then 2 is Zach Wilson destroys this offense, ruins this offense. It's like putting Nathan Peterman out there. The offense is god-awful, terrible, and that includes Elijah Moore, unfortunately, who had, 4 for 47 in a walk-up. That should have been a cakewalk. That was the Houston Texans. You should have walked all over them.
So I would tend toward benching Elijah Moore, because we've seen this from Zach Wilson now for a big stretch of the season, where it's just they can't do anything. Like, they can't get anything started. I think Nathan Peterman is an apt comparison here. I will say that I'm probably not, just to pull back a guy who we've been talking about a lot today, I'm probably not reaching down to Deshaun Jackson and hoping he pops a big play over Elijah Moore. I'm probably still playing Elijah Moore there. But I feel as though, just given how Elijah Moore's season has gone, whether you drafted him late and held him all year until he broke out, or you picked him up on waivers, most Elijah Moore teams probably have 3 other receivers they can start without reaching down to the likes of Deshaun Jackson. And so I feel like most Elijah Moore teams are going to be in a position where I would be recommending they sit Elijah Moore. But I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't reach for a, hope and pray I get one big play and start that guy over Elijah Moore.
Right.
That's where I'd be. That's where I'm sitting with him. So an interesting week for sure for these 2 teams. It still means something to the Eagles, and so they really need this game. You can't be clawing your way into the NFC playoffs and losing to the Jets. So a big week for the Philadelphia Eagles. Big week for the Indianapolis Colts as well. 8.5-point favorites in Houston. 45.5 the total on this game. Any concerns for Michael Pittman? I mean, obviously you're playing him, but 53 yards last week, 23 yards the week before that. Did have 71 yards in the win over Jacksonville in week 10. No touchdowns, however, in that one. Anything about the way this offense is going and Jonathan Taylor dominating things and the passing game not being reliably productive week in and week out that has you worried at all?
No, I'm not. It really comes down to is Jonathan Taylor was beasting, and at the same time, Carson Wentz has had some down games. And so if you think Carson Wentz, look at they're facing the Texans. This goes back to Jalen Hurts type of situation. It's like you think Michael Pittman's going to get his even by halftime. So I would say not concerned. Michael Pittman is inside. Actually, I think I have Michael Pittman potentially pushing my top 15 this week if I could go look at it real quick. Did you remember where I had him? I could double check.
I do not remember
Michael
where you have him.
He is 14. There you go.
Ooh,
One
okay.
spot in front of Marquise Brown.
Oh,
so there you go.
So there you go. Brandon Cooks and no one else in Houston.
I don't even know if I want Brandon Cooks this week. And you know I love Brandon Cooks.
You love
He's
Brandon
the
Cooks.
volume king. Yeah. It's just I think you have to as a wide receiver 3, but I think this could be one of the down games. This could be definitely one of those 3 for 45 games where it's frustrating. He's more risky this week than he was last week.
This game could get ugly pretty quickly, right? With the way Indy's playing.
The Texans.
Yeah. I mean, right. A lot of their games get ugly pretty quickly, which is funny. Like the Lions, the Lions are one of the best. Yeah, actually, you were talking about this a couple weeks ago. They're like 8-3 against the spread.
It's just
I bet they're going to have the biggest differential between against the spread record and actual record in NFL history.
Yeah,
because they're like they're a decent against the spread team. We still got that game to talk about, but we're going to talk about Rams and Jaguars first. Rams -13 at home against Jacksonville. This is the Survivor Special. If you have saved the Rams to this point, just check that box and move on to Week 14. And hey, hope everyone else loses and you just can win Survivor this week. This has to be a huge rebound week for the Rams, doesn't it? I mean, does anyone? I do not see any way in which the Rams don't roll out there and put up like 37 points and just everyone does something for you.
Unless Stafford's head, shoulders, knees, and toes are still so bad that he comes out of the game early. That's really the only way it's going to happen. Yeah, this should be fire up everybody. The only concern we
OBJ?
have is fun.
You, OBJ?
Yeah. I have Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson very close this week. I said that's the biggest thing is I had them both close, and I think that's what my pushback was more that OBJ 27, Van Jefferson 29. Sandwiched in between them, Jerry Jeudy. So there you go. And then Claypool's right there. So that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, start both of them. If Darrell Henderson plays, you're absolutely 1,000% starting Darrell Henderson. If he doesn't, Sony Michel becomes a top 15 almost running back because you're assuming they're just going to be grinding out the clock against them. But even so, I don't think it's going to be as much as it is most teams because what the Rams have shown with Matthew Stafford is similar to Tom Brady's Buccaneers is that just because you're up by 20 doesn't mean you're going to stop throwing.
Buffalo, Brian Dable, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills.
If they score 40 and there is no Darrell Henderson, that doesn't mean Sony Michel necessarily got 102 touchdowns. I mean, Sony Michel could still only get 1 touchdown on 60 yards, and Matthew Stafford just threw for 350 and 4.
Yep, definitely not a team that's gonna. I mean, they're just without Darrell Henderson. I feel like it's more Bills than Buccaneers, although the Buccaneers are a fine comparison because they're without Henderson, they're not built to run games out with the run game. Just like the Bills aren't built to run games out. Like they can be up 35-0, but they still need to their run game is short passes or whatever. Like that's just how they still have to play because of the personnel and the offensive design that they have. So I think we could see something similar from the Rams this week in a world where Darrell Henderson doesn't play. Really quick, let's get this question in from Kyle Woods. I can just boil it down to the essence here for you. Probably need someone in place of Waller. Are you playing Goddard or Ertz, knowing that you are playing against Kyler and have Hurts on your team?
Don't care.
I knew you were going to say that.
Whoever's ranked higher. If you disagree and you want to make that decision, it has zero to do with who you're facing. Do not ever set your lineup based on your opponent's lineup. Don't ever even look at your opponent's lineup and save yourself the headache and the frustration of doing it because it often leads to the wrong call. Now, Goddard's ahead of Ertz, but it's not a huge gap. Like if you still want to do Ertz, if you disagree with me, that's trust your gut. Like go Ertz, but it's not because you're facing Kyler. It has nothing to do with it.
Jake says this all the time, and I wholeheartedly agree. To be honest, I never know who I am playing against, meaning like who my opponent has on their team until probably like 4:00 Eastern time on Sundays. I have no idea who I'm playing.
Smart way against. To do it.
Yeah, because it's just you just play the best players on your team, worry about you scoring the most points, and trust that that's going to be what gets you a win, not this sort of gamesmanship.
Best case, it's 2 negatives to 1 positive. Like best case scenario, you offset Kyler.
Mhm.
Well, there's two ways it could go wrong. Is Kyler plays and just never throws to Ertz and has a big game anyway,
Yep.
and
Which
you
is
hurt
very
yourself.
possible.
Yes. Or the entire passing game goes down
Yeah.
and Kyler Murray does nothing and Ertz still does nothing, which might sound like equal, but it's not because if you would have played Goddard, you would have got that leg up that you lost by going with Ertz.
Just worry about your own team. Your opponent's going to do what they're going to do regardless of what you do, right? Yeah, this is all math. This is all just simple addition, and you want your numbers to add up to as much as they can, regardless of what your opponent's numbers are adding up to. That's how we really play this game. We've also got one more ad for you on this show that comes from MyFitnessPal. Finding the motivation to work out and eat healthy can be a struggle. MyFitnessPal can change that by teaching you about your nutrition and fitness habits, helping you create new ones that actually stick. This is not a rigid diet plan. Instead, you gradually learn from personalized data about what works for you. And that's really what's most important about this. It's not about what works for him or what works for her. It's about what works for you and finding the best path to achieving your goals. I actually have MyFitnessPal myself. I have their premium membership. My favorite thing about it is that the workout plans are curated by professionals. It's not me going online and saying, what's a good lift? What's a good cardio exercise? How can I meet my goals? I know that the people who are putting these plans together are pros who know exactly what they're talking about. And we really should be trusting experts. I feel like we have a dearth of wanting to trust experts right now. Experts are good people to trust. They're pros. They are in their field for a reason. I'm going to go ahead and trust the experts when I am building these workout plans and trust the ones that are out there for me on MyFitnessPal. It does way more than count calories. You get the support that you need to meet your health goals. To unlock all the amazing things MyFitnessPal can do and start your premium membership today, go to fantasy.myfitnesspal.com. Use the code FANTASY to get a 3-month premium membership for free. That's fantasy.myfitnesspal.com. Code FANTASY for a free 3-month premium membership. Fantasy.myfitnesspal.com. All right, Jake, 2 more games to get to here. Vikings and Lions. Vikings are 7-point favorites in Detroit. 46 the total on this game. Jamal Williams, you were talking about him earlier. No DeAndre Swift because of the shoulder sprain. Feel totally comfortable with Jamal Williams in your fantasy lineups this week.
Not totally. I would put him, I do have him, I think almost top 15. But I think if the entire group of running backs in that mid until high RB2 range, he probably has the most risk. And it's twofold. It's one, he's playing for the Lions. So let's be honest about how that could go.
It's risky.
But two is he's been banged up this year. And is it going to be Jamal Williams gets DeAndre Swift's workload? Or does he keep getting Jamal Williams slightly boosted up and now Jamar Jefferson or I can't pronounce his last name, but you know who it is.
Okwubuike.
Is it Okwubuike? But like that's the thing is it a split? Maybe that's a true committee. All 3 of them get touches, but that's really what it comes down. That's the risk. So yes, I have Jamal Williams as a top 20. Yes, I went hard after. Hey, I have Flair in my flex shirt. I got him in flex last night to get a running back because I dropped Mike Davis because I was tired of. I just had nobody to. I wanted to drop Mike Davis like 5 or 6 weeks ago. I just had nobody to drop him for because I kept getting outbid. But I still had a few bucks left at this point. Finally, but I would start Jamal Williams, especially if he's my flex running back. I would just take the chance. If he's my RB2, that's it. Evaluate your roster and understand it's not the safest RB2 that you might think.
Good spot for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. It's always a good spot for Kirk Cousins. I mean, like this. I say that tongue in cheek. Unless he's facing like the Bills or something like that, Kirk Cousins is just. This is why I go back to the Justin Herbert thing because he's frustrating. And similar to why I always joked about and hated Jared Cook is that these type of players can have their great game any given week. It doesn't matter. Like it's just the thing. Kirk Cousins could throw 303 touchdowns against the Bills if he's and then he goes belly up against the Jets. Like just
was it. That was how many years ago was that? When I think it was when was it the Bills when they were still bad and the Vikings were like 21-point favorites at home against them and they lost and Kirk Cousins was terrible. And that's like the perfect summation of Kirk Cousins. He probably came back the next week against like an awesome Packers team and threw for 403 touchdowns.
Right, and that's why everybody's like, "Why do you hate Kirk Cousins?" I don't hate Kirk Cousins. I hate his I hate his lack of predictability. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, but a guy who has his top end production ability, like we've seen from him for years now, throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen against a team as bad as Detroit, I think most Kirk Cousins managers are going to want to start him this week. Yeah. Let's wrap it up with the game of the week. Dolphins and Giants. Dolphins -4 against the Giants. 40.5 is the total on this game. What are you doing with the Giants, Jake? We're probably not going to know until game time-ish, maybe Saturday, if it's Daniel Jones or Mike Glennon Do you care if it's Daniel Jones or Mike Glennon as it relates to the rest of the Giants players?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's the end of the world if Sterling Shepard is playing and healthy. Sterling Shepard is Daniel Jones' boy. That's really what it comes down to. Daniel Jones, a quarterback. Sterling Shepard going to see 25% of the targets. I tweeted this out earlier this week. For the season, it's target percentage. So team target percentage is how much of the team's targets do you have. Target percentage for a player is how many times when you're on the field are you targeted. Sterling Shepard is inside the top 10 because Daniel Jones just peppers the living hell out of him. Similar to other big names, if you go back and look at the list, there's some interesting. Funny enough, Deontay Harris was in that list. It just shows that, like, when Deontay Harris is on the field, Jameis Winston was throwing to him back when that was happening. But anyway, the point is Sterling Shepard if healthy. If not Sterling Shepard and Kadarius Toney plays, Toney is Shepard. Finkel is Einhorn. It's that simple. You just plug him in. But if there's no Daniel Jones, Sterling Shepard would go from a locked-in, you need to play, or wide receiver 3 like a Jacoby Myers, and you hope he scores a touchdown to really make his day. But I'd say you become a risky wide receiver 4 because Mike Glennon might try to force the ball to Kenny Golladay. He might, go that way. But and you have to start Saquon Barkley.
Of course.
The good thing is that Sterling Shepard and running backs are the easier way to beat the Dolphins than the outside receivers.
Yeah, very true. And it's been a team that, they've put themselves on the fringes of the AFC playoff race with the way they've played over these last few weeks. We know we're playing Myles Gaskin. That volume is just too good to ignore. We're playing Jalen Waddle also. Where you at on Tua in this matchup?
For Tua, that's mid QB2. Because the Giants, have said this for a long time. The Giants secondary is really good because they keep everything in front of them. They'll give up. This is like, if you could start Jacoby Myers against the Giants every single week, you'd probably have a top 15 wide receiver. The problem is trying to get behind them and trying to get the big plays. And they do give up touchdowns and stuff like that, but they keep most in front of them. So Tua, and maybe he runs a little bit, but he's going to be a mid QB2 for me. Yep. Jalen Waddle. I've been loving some Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is actually 5th in the league in receptions. I start the living hell out of Jalen Waddle, even if Devontae Parker returns. And I actually think Devontae Parker is more intriguing after this game if he comes back. I do not like Devontae Parker so much against this Giants secondary.
Would love to see this Miami offense for just a stretch with everyone, right? I mean, have Tua and Devontae Parker played together this season yet?
Yeah, I think so. I think one game. I know he hasn't played with Will Fuller.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Will Fuller. But yeah, so he hasn't played with Will Fuller and, whatever that is. But Devontae Parker, right? One game they've played together. I would love to see just one, just give them a stretch of Tua and Parker and Waddle and Gesicki and Gaskin and, all out there together. I would just like to see what they could potentially be. So hopefully that's something that we've got over these last few weeks of the season. We thank you for getting us in your ears on this episode of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. We are going to call it a show right there. For Jake, I am Michael Beller. Week 13 starts tonight. No Alvin Kamara, in case you've missed that, out tonight. So Mark Ingram, maybe you fire him up. Thank you again for listening to us. Thank you for being with us on YouTube. Those of you who were, good luck in Week 13. We will talk to you guys soon. Let's all go out there and get some W's in this crucial fantasy football week. See you.